Hello and welcome to the second video on the minor arcana of the Thoth deck, and this time we have the card Truth, which is the Four of Swords as Crowley names it. So we'll take a close look at that in a minute on the closed screen. Just a little mention that in this book by B.O.T.A, he actually says that this is the best looking card in the suit of swords, which I don't particularly agree with. I will actually review this book at sometime soon. It could have been the best book of Thoth on the market, but I don't know, it just all seemed to go to pot when he started talking about the actual cards themselves. It was a brilliant introduction, and then for me he just abdicates responsibility for interpreting the cards in his own way. So anyway, this book is it certainly gives a great background to the Thoth deck, and it's highly recommended, but as I say, when I come to review that, we'll talk about its shortcomings a little bit. Okay, on to the close-up of the Truth card, and we'll look at some symbology and then come back to do a 2-card reading using Truth and the 9 of Discs, which we used in the last video. Okay, second time lucky recording this, because I spent about half an hour doing it and then found there was no audio at the end of it, so hopefully better luck this time when my software is working. Okay, so we excuse me, look at the general symbology of the card. Description is using this cursor here, so you can follow me around a little easier. You've got a green fixed St Andrew's cross. The green is the green of Libra. Swords meeting in the middle of this central rose here, with you've got chaotic yellow lines in the background and along with the blue showing through. Okay, that's the general symbology. We'll break that down into more detail in a bit, but we'll just look at the astrological attributes of this card. And first thing we'll look at, we've got Jupiter at the top there, the planet in the sign of Libra. I'm going to introduce you to a chart that I didn't really go through on the first video on the 9 of Discs. This is basically the wheel of the Zodiac, 360 degrees. It's divided up into 12 equal segments with the 12 star signs in the central wheel here. So you've got the red fire of Aries, followed by the green earth of Taurus, yellow of Gemini, and the blue of Cancer, and so the cycle continues. This particular card looks at Libra, so we'll go over here, and each sign of the Zodiac is further subdivided into what are called decans, which are these outer segments here. So we've got each sign has occupies 30 degrees of the Zodiac, and that 30 degrees is subdivided into 3 lots of 10 degrees, the 10 being the decan. This card, which is the Four of Swords, occupies the 3rd decan, 20 to 30 degrees here, which is ruled by Jupiter. The card here is from the Rider-Waite deck, but we can transpose the card of Truth, which is the Crowley equivalent of that here. Okay, from here we'll go and look in a little bit more detail at the astrology of the card, because that's quite important. Libra is a sign all about harmony and balance, and Jupiter is about expansion of consciousness through using higher mind. Also in this particular card, it's associated with the use of the higher perspective and taking time out from your current situation, which is represented by these yellow chaotic lines in the background. So we have these yellow, which represents air and thoughts, and so we've got all this chaos, all this confusion that we've been going through for probably a little while, and the green cross here is basically that our thoughts, which are the swords here, are sheathed in the white rose, and it means that we're taking time out from the chaos that's been in our life, and that may be emotional, or it could be just mentally not knowing where your life is going, or you may be having problems, in the workplace. So depending on the context of the reading, the general meaning of the card is the same, and that is taking time out and space to reflect on which is the best way forward. I think that pretty much wraps up the astrology of the card and a bit of the symbology. St Andrew's cross is actually, it's called a fixed cross. It has biblical connotations from the Apostle St Andrew, who basically was saying that he didn't feel he was worthy of being crucified in the same way as Jesus was, and so this brings on to a different sort of topic of the card, which really sort of looks at self-esteem, and it sort of implies that maybe at this time we don't have the right or the enough self-esteem to move forward through a particular obstacle which is in our way. So we're doing the right thing and taking a break and really not moving forward incorrectly or in the wrong way. We're taking time out to actually reflect. So in that way, it's a positive card. The actual rose itself has not got a random number of petals. There are actually 49 petals. The reason for this, if we break the numerology down, 7 7s 49. 7 is the magic number of Venus, and Venus rules Aquarius here. Sorry, Aquarius. It rules Libra, and Libra is all about balance. So again, this is another implication of the card, that we're trying to find balance in our life. And looking at in greater detail at the swords themselves, on the hilts of the sword, which is this particular area just by the handle, they represent they've got these symbols of the 4 elements. So you've got the round circles of the discs, chaotic scenes of the air, similar to this background effect there, wavy lines of water, and you've got flames of fire there. So are quite difficult to see even in the larger version of the Thoth deck, but they are there. What else can we say? The blue background, we've mentioned the white lines here. We've also got a blue background, and that is symbolic of the planet Jupiter. Again, showing that there is, within all this confusion that might be in our lives, if we actually are drawing this card, that there is something positive there in the background. Astrologically, Jupiter is normally a very benevolent planet. And I think that wraps up pretty much the symbology there. The Rider-Waite version of the card is this, with the 3 swords on top, and again it's the idea of a certain amount of rest, but being on guard as well there. We'll look into this in more detail when we come on to the Rider-Waite deck, but that's the equivalent of the 4 of swords in the Thoth deck. We shall have a little look at the Kabbalistic attributes of the card, which are Hesed here, which is the 4th Sephiroth, and this relates to the consolidation of energy from the 3 upper Sephira here. So from here we get more of a foundation, a consolidation of energy, which again relates to the 4s generally in the tarot. From the 3s you've got quite a lot of conflict, especially in the suit of swords and cups, and so this 4 represents more of a rest from that. Doesn't mean to say the job's done, but it does give us chance out to reflect. So again, this is a very simplified version of the Kabbalah, but I don't want to really put people on overload by going into tremendous detail on that. And what should we go to next? Okay, we can look at the divination aspects of the card. So we'll go back to the original card here. We look at it in a spread after we've just isolated it and looked at some possible meanings of it. So from what I've said, we can apply that symbology to the meaning of the card, which is truce. And if it comes up in a reading, it basically means the need to take time out from a stressful situation, have a holiday, even time to recharge the batteries and think anew. It's sort of a time when conflicts are maybe not going away from us, and therefore we need to take an active break so that we can mentally recharge and look at things in a different light. So it's saying that something isn't particularly resolved, but that said, this is a useful time out for us to make possible adjustments to our life. The last thing that I want to do here is really look at, just very briefly, at what Crowley says about the card, and he's not overly complimentary about it. We won't go into detail about what he says, but it's in the book of Thoth, which is on page 205. Just a couple of quotes here. He says it represents a refuge from mental chaos. So again, that's pretty much the theme of what I've talked about. But in typically Crowley style, he says it also refers to, as I quote, minds too indolent or too cowardly to think out their own problems hail joyfully at this policy of appeasement. So what he's saying is that people sometimes are too lazy or too weak to actually work through this chaos surrounding them, and maybe I've just put it in a kind of way, in the way that I've described. I think he's a little bit heavy-handed there, but nevertheless that's what he's saying, and maybe it does relate back to self-esteem, and perhaps we don't have the right amount of self-esteem at this time to actually work through what we need to in one fell swoop, and we need to sort of back away and get a bit of distance there. Okay, so I think that wraps up pretty much everything that I want to say about that, and we'll move to the context of the card within a 2-card reading. Okay, to the last part of the video, and I'm going to keep this really short because I'm aware that we're approaching 15 minutes, which is rather long. We're going to be looking at a card of the day, which we gain, and the second card, truce, being the aspect to the main card, rather like astrology, where you've got the planets aspecting to one another, and the nature of the aspect being would be to do with the meanings of the 2 cards and how they blend together. So if gain is the my card for today, for instance, it would be telling me that my life is pretty good at the moment, that I'm not really wanting for anything financially. It doesn't mean to say that I'm particularly well off, but it means that I'm not really having any problems with the material aspects of my life, that I'm pretty contented and balanced there. Good things might be coming my way. The Truth card really sort of puts a little bit of a stop to that, and it's really telling me that perhaps underneath the surface of things I've been struggling with other aspects of my life that I may not have been dealing with particularly well. So although materially I'm fine, maybe there are other aspects of my life, emotionally, spiritually, that may have been playing on my mind. And what I need to do is take some time out to really see whether the balance in my life lies purely in the material, or whether I actually need to maybe reorganise myself so that, for instance, if too much of my energy is going into making this balanced, are other areas of my life being neglected? So this way around, the card is saying that all may not be as it seems on the surface, and is indicated by this card here. We could do it the other way around, and with Truth being the main card, if Truth is the main card and Gain is the aspecting card, then that's basically telling me that I'm taking some time out at the moment because things are pretty much getting on top of me. I may have had to compromise at a work situation, or maybe it could be a relationship thing. But the future is looking pretty good. If I do that and I use this time well, then my life will become more harmonious, more balanced. So that's about it. In future spreads, I'm going to be talking and relating them more to meditation and spiritual stuff, because I don't want to just talk about the standard relationship and work situations that we normally see, and I'll probably use these in separate videos as well, rather than linking them into a specific card video. Okay, well, I hope you enjoyed this, and thanks for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye.